Yeah, so George, your full Kolbe result, like the four numbers are 6726. So six in fact finder, seven in follow through, two in quick start, and six in implementer. So, and remember, all of those are positive. It's not like, oh, I wish I were stronger or wish I had a higher quick start. That too is a great strength in being the chaos controller. I'll add another like drip another piece of your Colby result in here. You're also a seven in follow through. So follow through is how we deal with systems, structure, planning. So in addition to you being a kind of person when it comes to change, so your strength in change, as I said, that's the chaos controller rather than just, oh, let's experiment. Let's just every day is a new. That's not you. It's more kind of, hey, what works? Let's stick with what works. When you add to that the fact that your strength in systems and structure is to be somebody who creates systems, sticks with them, operates most effectively within a structure, like, and those, by the way, don't always go together. There are some people who create a structure, but then experiment and, kind of change things up all the time. So that structure and that plan is always changing. For you, you create the plan, the system, the structure, and then you keep it consistent and you don't just experiment with it all the time. So I'm frankly kind of sitting here feeling the stress you must have been under for a couple of years. And it sounds like maybe continuing a little, but it sounds like you've gotten to a point where you've pushed some of that chaos and change and unknown back. Is that
I
true?
do think on paper it sounds like that. In action, I do feel a lot of that same energy still on the day to day. And it's a struggle. It is. It's something I'm always kind of battling is maybe it's that I want more control. I'm not too sure, but I'm always just reaching for systems to try to help myself, my clients, and the people that I work with. But I always want more, and I don't know where that comes from, but it's an issue. Is I always want a little bit more control.
And also, so I haven't talked yet about your fact finder, but let's talk about that. So you are a six in fact finder, which is fact finder is how we deal with gathering and sharing information. So you're in the accommodate range, kind of in the mid range between somebody who really needs to do tons and tons of research and get all the information versus somebody on the other end of the spectrum that's, you know what? I'm just going to focus on a couple key points and I don't need to go so deep in all of the facts and details. So you're in the middle on those, but you skew more toward the data side of stuff. So with this combination of your planning and your systems and hey, a little more data gathering and sharing than the average person probably, um, you'll spot those patterns, you'll get the information. So this is why I think you really will understand well, hey, I'm setting high standards, but I also know that the client will be happy with this. And I know what to shoot for that's realistic without feeling like I'm um, cutting corners, maybe.
Yes, and yeah, in a little microcosm, that's what I would say is almost the struggle of my past decade in a way is knowing I don't have to get the moon and the stars, but no matter what I do, once I reach a flow, I just start going for the 11 out of 10. Even though I'm fully aware that, this client really might only need a 7 out of 10, and that doesn't mean I'm doing a worse job. It just means that's what they need. But when I do see potential, I tend to chase it. Um, and then it's interesting looking at the fact finder because it does register. It's like when being a six, like I would say when I'm doing something I know, like you said, a pattern, I don't need to do so much research. I feel like I know kind of where to run. But the moment I tread into territory of like, this is new for me, I can spend an incredible amount of time kind of like trying to make sure that I feel confident before I say go.
Yeah. Well, and you should build the time in for that as well. So you recognize it, you're aware of it. And yeah, I think the reason for that is with your two in quick start, um, in combination with the other parts, those new things where you really feel like, "Ah, I don't have the information. It's kind of, don't know what to expect. You need to then kick that fact finder research kind of part into gear so that it doesn't seem so new and experimental. It's like, well, I haven't actually done it myself yet this way, but I was able to do the research, ask a bunch of questions, figure some things out before just jumping in. You are not a, well, you are a look before you leap kind of person, not just a go for it, jump in. Again, this isn't a can or can't, so you can just jump in, but it's not natural for you. It will take more energy and impose more stress on you when you don't have that time to figure some things out ahead of time.
I was so interested in this one in particular when I was reading about it because part of me almost wants to like push against that only because I think of myself as really creative and I associate creativity with what I would assume is kind of a quick start. And maybe that's wrong, but it's when I'm
Well,
doing,
kind of, but keep going. We'll get
yeah,
back.
okay. Yeah, I just, that's, it's funny because I do, when I'm like working strictly in a creative role versus more of like a logistical role, um, I do a lot of kind of untested things, but it's in a creative world, which I don't do that and wouldn't do that so much on the day to day with a client in terms of like communication. But if I, yeah, that creative part of me is, I would, it's very different, I think.
Yeah, so let me touch on this notion that, oh, isn't creative the same as the other end of the spectrum in quick starts? Like, oh, taking risks and experimenting and doing things differently all the time. So, no, that is not, I would reject that notion. And here's why. Your Kolbe results, your cognitive strengths are about the way you take action naturally. So, all of that is about creativity. So there's part of your way of being creative is having a plan ahead of time, figuring out where do I want this to go. So sure, there's a type of creativity that I think is more celebrated and honored right now in our culture. I don't know that's true in all cultures, by the way. But there's a type that's celebrated where it's, oh, it looks like it was just total seat of the pants, just woke up with a lightning bolt hitting you and you tried something totally different. And sure, that's the way creativity works for people who are like that, like nines and quick start, who that's their MO, that's the way they operate. You're just as creative with your way of doing something, which is more systematic and planned and structured. Um, think of, and so I obviously don't have his Kolbe results, but Thomas Edison, so great inventor. And you think, well, that's certainly somebody who just had these lightning bolts of inspiration. But in the reading that you do on his life, that's not really how he operated. He would research, he would do things over and over and over. He would fail and fail and fail, but always make incremental steps toward the big goals that he had set for himself. And then he would reach them. He'd find things. He would change things, like even the light bulb. I mean, it's literally the symbol of that light bulb going off in your head. And yet he didn't invent the light bulb. People think he did. He invented a much better light bulb that was more usable, but there had already been some. He went through, I don't even know how many hundreds of different versions,
Iterations. Hmm.
iterations. Yeah. So it wasn't this waking up one day and all of a sudden he realized, that's it. I know what I'm going to try out. You're that kind of person where you will have these creative breakthroughs that you can kind of count on. They don't come immediately. They will come over a little bit more time. So I would guess like when you are most successful and you create things that you give yourself credit for being creative about, you had that vision in mind with, okay, here's where I am. I'm going to try some things out, but I'm working toward this goal at the end. If they don't work, I'm going to learn from them and put it into the next step. You will really plan out those phases or steps in the process, and then you'll get there.
That's like that. You basically just spoke my entire project management into existence. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And because I always, when I'm working on a project, it could be this massive project with a million, literally like possible outcomes. It is like I almost try to build almost like a safe space to play in that's not going to result in a tangent that flies me off the side of the edge of whatever the project is. But that's what I do is I try to really just create a safer space through some planning, and then I let myself kind of run wild after the larger picture is in place. So that makes a whole lot of sense.
So we haven't touched on the last of your four MOs, Kolbe strengths, cognitive strengths, which is called Implementer. Implementer is how we deal with tactile, tangible, literally three-dimensional hands-on stuff. So you're a 6 in Implementer. And what that means is it's that mid-range, kind of like with Fact Finder. It's in kind of the middle, but skewing toward the side of things where you really do need to get your hands on things. I would really encourage you always, as you're growing your business, to be out at a shoot. So even if out at a shoot means, well, you're in your studio, don't just be at a desk planning it, having conversations with the client. I want you to still go in and touch and feel all the equipment. How is the lighting? If you get trapped behind a desk and on the phone, and that's 90% of what you do with your business, you're going to lose the spark. You're not going to love it. So you always need to keep that high value. Like, you don't want to spend all your time on low value stuff for your business and your clients, but oh, okay, well, but I wrapped up all the cables and cinched them up. Like, yeah, you can do a little bit of that if you need that hands-on outlet, and that's a silly one. But that's why I talk about more stuff like lighting and other things that are going to make the end product so much better. But it's a common mistake that people make is as they grow their business, they get totally out of some things that they need to do because it's who they are. And they think, well, now this is kind of below me in terms of what we get paid for, so I shouldn't spend any time on those literal hands-on things. But you'll need to.